Hello there. Um, I haven't done a video here in my bed in a while now, and I'm trying not to speak too loudly because it is pretty late. It's like 23, 24, or something like that right now. So it's pretty late. It's almost midnight. Pretty normal for me to stay up to this time. So anyways, I was watching season 2 of Ted Lasso with my family earlier, and I don't think we made it through the last episode ever. I think we were on the second to last one, and we were watching on Blu-ray, and disc was lagging out and all that. It's pretty weird stuff going on with that, but I've enjoyed it so far, and it's been pretty fun. It's entertaining. So maybe I'll talk more about that in the future. Anyways, so it was probably about 2 hours ago, something like that, and probably closer to an hour and a half. So I came up here right after I finished doing stuff downstairs, right, and I pretty much just got everything I need to done. I can really for tomorrow. And I'll be going to work tomorrow with my dad, unless it rains, which I don't think there's a high chance of that happening, but anyways, so I've done a couple of days of landscaping job with my dad, and I don't, basically what my dad's telling me, I probably won't have to, work every day. I wouldn't have to do every single hour I would go. He's not expecting me to work like a 40-hour work week or anything like that. Although I thought I could totally try. Right, but some of these days might be pretty rough and all that, and weather, pretty big factor, because if it's a rainy day, we probably won't be going in. But I got a little bit sunburnt. It was on my neck at first, then there was my arms a couple days ago. This last Thursday, I think it was. So I've applied aloe to side of my arms probably like 4 or 5 times now. It's not as bad now. I probably could do it again another time or two. There's definitely still some redness there. Still hurts a little bit, but it's not that bad. I've been watching more YouTube for the last, hour and a half, something like that now, pretty much. It's, pretty standard thing for me to do. And kind of came across, just a bunch of different types of videos. I watched, some about Lego Star Wars video games. I watched some about, politics today. Well, it's probably earlier on this morning. I watched some about Minecraft, and different, random funny challenges and all that people were doing, competitive ones. I watched a good handful of them about, people's personal stories and or just sort of things that they learned that they kind of wish they'd known earlier in their lives and stuff like that, whether it be like romance or jobs, or, just being an adult, all that good stuff. And, so I don't know what my whole entire thought process was with this, but, so it's pretty much, I was watching this, channel here, and I let's be real, probably won't remember to put name of her channel in this. But so I was watching this. I don't know if it's a smaller content creator or not, but so I was watching a video or two by this, by this girl. She's kind of just talking about, that the sort of whole thing of how she has wanted to sort of, be in love, right? And all the stuff that's kind of come with that, right? The different different sort of experiences that she like to have. And it was really pretty, it was cool. And, I liked it the way that she expressed herself, she was pretty authentic, it was pretty easy to understand, she was also a little pretty, so that helped too, that kind of stuff, and, it was engaging, admittedly, pretty tired, right? I don't want to have this video being too long, because again, I do need to go to bed sooner rather than later, if I want to get, good enough amount of sleep, but, anyways, so, kind of just had this sort of thought pop in my mind in the last couple of minutes here, and a little bit, somewhat similar thing earlier today, but, I've kind of, I don't know how much I've talked about it on here or not, but, I've had the whole thing before where I've kind of felt like, well, so I've asked several people, mostly kind of just out of curiosity, but, also somewhat because I gotta say, it really is a curiosity, right? I don't know, there's probably something else here too, but, I kind of wanted to be like, how do some different people that are close to myself, right? So, different friends, family, or maybe people like some teachers or some peers and all that, how do they, perceive me? How do they, what do they think about this and that and all that, right? And kind of just interesting to kind of gather that. And I feel like, it really depended on the person, but, some people, I kind of got the thing, that I, kind of just saying like, oh, I'm pretty normal, right? Or, I'm a pretty normal guy or whatever. And they didn't mean it in any negative or harmful way, I don't think. But I know for myself, it felt a little bit like, I don't know if it just viewed it as like basic or vanilla, or just normal or whatever. Because, to me, it kind of just was like, well, there's nothing really about me that feels like, oh, it makes me seem like, oh, I have something like super interesting going on or, memorizable or whatever. Like, I'm not fixating on like, oh, I have to have like a, crazy ass like style or, physical style or anything like that, like, if you've seen a lot of my videos on my channel, right, I don't wear, complicated clothes, I wear, a mixture of casual and, like formal stuff, button-up shirts, khakis, or just, t-shirts and, pants and all that, right, yeah, I don't really wear that many accessories, the most I might have would be, my hat, one of my hats, or, maybe a watch or a ring or something like that. I'm not wearing it right now, but, I've 2 rings I got off Amazon, which I think they both were gifts. But, yeah, I'm not married, I'm not dating, anything. I wear it on my right hand. Right, I made the mistake of putting it on my left hand a while back, not doing that. I just do my right hand when I do wear them, although I have really not been doing that very much for a while now. But it's kind of just thought, they're super cool. Well, anyways, so I kind of was just realizing, well, maybe like where, me really not liking this, maybe me feeling this sort of like panic and sort of feeling like just sort of, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I feel like angry about it. I don't think that's even really what I'm experiencing or have experienced. I think it was just more like, I feel like, well, a few different things, I guess it's a very normal thing of, whole like desire to have like a kind of a legacy or something like that, right? To have kind of, impact on the world, right? Or to have have your name written down somewhere, right? Have it so that, someone's, stores your memory or something. But the weird part of that too is it's like, well, then if you think about that, right? We have this sort of desire for that in our lives, but if we think about what would it feel like for someone to, think about, so and so or yourself or whatever, right? In that kind of way, after you're gone, after you've passed away, it feels weird. It feels like, at least for myself, it feels weird because it'd be like, like sometimes I feel like I have the thing where I'm being like, why are you paying attention to me or whatever? Where it feels like, why are you, I feel weird getting that much attention. So I don't know, it's a weird little paradox thing, I suppose, a little contradiction. But, anyways, and the other part of it is kind of just, excuse me. I guess the other sort of part of it is just, I would, I guess there's also kind of just a bit of envy of some different people I've kind of encountered with, right? Not of their stuff, but their, I don't know. Like, for example, like I've, whether it be, my brother who has a gothic style, or, some people that I've seen at like different talent shows, or, maybe some musicians or, maybe certain characters in different, stories that have like really cool powers and all of that, it's kind of like, they look, they're phenomenal, they're fantastic, right? They have a super cool aesthetic, right? And, maybe that involves some kind of super cool, mysterious powers or something, it doesn't necessarily have to, but, it could, right? Or maybe, something like that, and, I kind of really feel that, the whole sort of energy coming off of those people, right? And, but also the part of it being that sort of envy of kind of feeling, that these people, right, they feel like, it seems like they might have some kind of, like they have this sort of like unique, special purpose, right? They're not just, they're not just another, corporate monkey, they're not just another, average Joe, going in and working a 9 to 5 in the office or something like that, right? They have a different role, where most people, maybe this sort of, I don't know if I really believe it or not, but it's been in my brain for a long time. I feel like, where it's like, oh, your average person, they just go in, they just fill the boring positions, they just do the boring things that just keep our society running. And then you have the few random people out there who get to do like the actual fun stuff, right? Like they get to actually, maybe do all kind of traveling different places, or maybe they get to, be like, oh, we get to protect the world, from all kinds of, random super dangerous stuff, or, like whether it be like superheroes or, some people in like a sci-fi series or something, like whether it be like military or not, or, you know, or super cool, like, doctors or something, you know, like Doctor Who or whatever, I don't know, right, you know, or you have people, you know, just kind of doing all that stuff, right, you have, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, I don't want to just be thought, oh, you know, oh, you're just another, you know, you're just another +1 to the, you know, giant mass of, you know, you know, you know, people not really doing much anything interesting or significant or unusual or exciting with their lives. Or, you know, you're just going to be stuck, you know, in this boring gray and brown, you know, and flat and depressing, you know, earth, and you won't be able to like go up and, you know, explore the heavens and, you know, and fight, you know, you know, fight all these, you know, badass creatures and all that, right? But, you know, or whatever, I don't know, so, you know, it's crazy stuff, but, you know, which I think you get the idea. And I don't actually want to be fighting any stuff. I think if I had to, I'd be really freaking out. I don't think I'm really the kind of person to actually do that. I've imagined it a lot of times, but I don't think I'd actually realistically. I don't really see myself, you know, doing these kind of things and doing, you know, the violent, you know, doing the violent stuff. You know, even if, you know, it's justified, even if it's for, you know, even if I'm not like injuring or killing anyone, right? You know, which I wouldn't be wanting to do in the first place, but yeah, anyways. Sorry about that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just this whole sort of thing for myself that I've had for a while. I don't know why it was there in the first place. I don't know really how long, but kind of just thing in my mind. You know, and all the other little random things I was just thinking about, so I was just glancing over, you know, looking around my room was, you know, you know, we have a nice place here, but, you know, the family's trying to, you know, my family's trying to move to a different place, and, you know, we've just not had any, you know, real offers on our place yet. I'm just hoping, I'm just praying a bit now that we can do that, you know, so we can move to a different place that suits our current needs a little bit better. But even so, it's a nice place, you know. Sad to leave, you know. I've enjoyed it. I don't know. I mean, but yeah. I mean, again, you know, the whole normal thing of, you know, you don't realize what you have until it's gone, right? Or it's about to be, you know. And yeah, I think that's been true for me through my life. Sometimes, you know, and I don't know. It is, you know, pretty frequent, you know, experience, you know, people, but right, we often long for what we don't have, right? And when we get what we want, we wish we had something else, or we wish we had what we had before. You know, that could be relationship status. That can be, that can be, you know, living in a certain place. That can be, you know, all kinds of different things, right? You know, and it's hard to kind of think of, you know, how do I, you know, what, you know, it's kind of like the whole question of, you know, what is it, you know, what is the thing, what is the, you know, relationship, what is the, you know, just, you know, fill the blank, right, that I want so badly, or could want so badly, that if only I had this, right, then, you know, boom, a problem solved, the feeling goes away, right? And then it just feels like, everything's figured out, it's fine now. But real life doesn't really work like that, unfortunately. It's not quite that simple. And it's just trying to think about, how do I do that, right? Just a question, big question many people have asked, wondered about. But anyways, I'm gonna, as much as I might like to go on longer, I need to sleep, I need to drink more water, I need to get good rest, and I'll try to do more videos. I don't know honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna edit it or not, but I did record in 2 or 3 parts, I think it was. This video where I kind of was just showing off some of my long-term Minecraft survival world. So hopefully I'll be releasing something of that in the next couple of days, or over this week. I don't know, maybe this weekend. I got some emails I've been neglecting for probably a week and a half. I probably just need to get to it. Look at that stuff. I know it's a pain. I'm gonna try to last look at it, but probably need to suck it up and try again. Just that way I can clear a few of those emails out of my off my pages there. But anyway, maybe I might update my Google website. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't updated it in at least a couple of months, to say the least. But anyways, if you enjoy this, resonate with anything I said, you see more stuff like this, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you in the next one.